Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and we have a brand new hot off the tools first impressions video for you today. So this has literally landed on my front door this morning just a couple of hours ago, and as of recording this on the 10th of November 2021, it is just arriving in the shops and at people's houses if they pre-ordered it for the very first time. So this is Airfix's brand new, totally new tool, 148 de Haverlland Vampire, the F3 version. So that was the predecessor, logically, of the F1. The F1 being released pretty much straight after the war in 1946, and the F3 came out, I think, a couple of years later. And is one of the true pioneers of jet aviation. Quite unusual looking plane due to its shape and its tail arrangement. Okay, so the last Airfix kit that I reviewed was their outstanding Mosquito, so I'm hoping that Airfix have done it again and have lived up to the standard they set on that last kit review. So let's have a look at what we get. So, typical red box, we appear to have 3 paint options, which is nice. The kit number is A06107. As we look at it, we have 2 flying hours. We have, as usual, the list of Humbrol paints there, which includes a separate listing for the pilot. So if you know you're not going to want the pilot, you can ignore that straight away. We're a skill level 2. It lists out what the 3 different markings are. So we've got number 601 Squadron, 442 City of Vancouver. So that's a Canadian one, and Norway. So we've got Britain, Canada and Norway represented here. The usual information telling you that we've got cartograph decals as well. 8+ as always for Airfix. Right, let's have a look in the box. As you can see, taped down. I have not looked in it, so we are going to visit this kit at the same time together. Okay, so we get the usual Airfix single bag with a number of sprues in, and our usual Airfix manual. Feels quite weighty. Let's have a look at the instructions first. Okay, so on the first page, as always, we've got a little bit of history, all important, and the specifications of the aircraft that you're building. And then at the bottom, we've got the wash instructions and a note just to tell you that there'll be some parts maybe that aren't used for this, which is a good sign. It means we've got different models coming out. And then as we flip over, that continues. Then we've got some assembly instructions or guidance for how this is going to run, and then we've got the familiar Airfix key, which is comprehensive and clear and works well. And we are starting step 1, unusually, with what looks like the lower wings. So it looks like we've got a lower wing moulded into the body, which is interesting. And right from the off, we are on an option. So this is gear up. We've got some drilling to do. And it's already referring you to other pages. So straight away I'm thinking, okay, these instructions are quite involved already. So I can see why they've put it in at a level 2. Then we're building up internal ductwork, which is related to the engines. So we've got the air intakes there, and then you've got the engine feeding out of the tail there. So this is the internal pipework for that. So that, you know, that's nice. I don't think we're going to see it, but when you look through the air vents at the front of the wings, which are quite prominent, what you will see will look correct. So I quite like that. I think it's unlikely we'll see any of that, but I might be wrong. We're using the now familiar new way of Airfix instructions, with red part being the last one looked at. So we're on, well, we've got step 5A and B here, which again are options depending on whether you're going to have the gear down or the gear up. So with the gear up, we can dispense with some of the internal parts, which will be visible if the gear's down. And look at the detail that they're showing on that. If that's on the plastic parts and it's done nice and crisp, that should look really nice. I can see there that we're also blocking the nose off at that point as well. So we're on step 5, and already we've got quite involved instructions. Turn over the page, and we're continuing with the internal parts of the wing, building up the bulkheads there around the gear bay. And then we've got more detail going on to the engine. So we've got the sort of the cowl that goes around the blades there, all being assembled. So when we look in from that side, we, you know, assuming that we're painting this in different colours, which we're not particularly, how visible it'll be, I don't know, but it's reassuring to know it's there. This is all being picked out in the same colour, I'm noting. They're calling 53 for the internals of that. That surface, the blade part there. So how clear it's going to be when it's all closed up and dark, I don't know. So in step 14, we have what looks like options on the seat. So this is quite unusual. I've never seen this before. I can't think of a kit that's done this before. It appears that we have 2 different seats, one with harnesses moulded on if you're not putting the pilot in, and one without harnesses if you are putting the pilot in. Now I really like that. Personally, I don't have a major issue with moulded on harnesses if they're done well. If you paint them well, they can look just as good, sometimes even better than aftermarket harnesses. Sometimes difficult to get the metal etch ones to sit properly, and the same with the material ones. So I quite like that, and they're also, they don't put photo etch in their kits. That's how they keep it, the health and safety level down to 8, and no doubt that also keeps the cost down a little bit. So they're keeping this as sort of a pocket money kit for kids. I think this is a great little solution, so I really like that. I've not seen that before. I think that's a really nice little innovation they've got there. Then we're building up the bulkhead. We've got separate tanks there, so that detail will be crisper and more prominent. You've got some orientation there for when you're gluing it in, which is all important. Painted instructions for the pilot. Pilot looks fairly cool. Lots of detail on him. Not sure that I recognise who it is. Then we've got control panels and joystick and so on going in. At this stage, the cockpit doesn't look that busy. Well, obviously, when we look at the plastic, we'll get a better view. Then we're building up the front wheel bay there before the cockpit goes in, and then we put the top in. So yeah, that's all good. We're on 21 steps. So in 23 we're putting these little corner sections in, which I think that's along the tail edge there, isn't it? So that'll be the edge of the wing root there, so when the ailerons, the flaps, whatever they are dropped down, that's the edge you'll be able to see. So then we have assembly of the tails, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they appear to have then a bayonet fitting which goes in and goes into this wing brace here, which has also formed part of the bulkhead of the wing there. So that's really cleverly done as well. That should make that nice and strong. As long as our join line is not, it would be really nice if that was along a natural panel line, wouldn't it? I'm sure they would have thought about that. Then as we flip it over, step 28, we've got what looks like internal parts going into the upper part of the fuselage. So fuselage being halved along the wings is quite interesting. It means you won't have that gap you've got to fill around the canopy. Of course, you might have gaps to fill along the wing edges, but we will see. So we've got some detail going in there, being built up and painted up. Then we've got two options for the dials. I'm guessing that's to accommodate decals or painting. Not sure. Then we put those two fuselage halves together. So how busy that's going to be, I'll be interested, but ultimately we've put quite a bit in there. It's just been spread out over a number of stages. Step 33, and we want 17 grams of weight in what looks like a fairly small nose area. Be interesting to see how we can go about that. We've got the front sections of the wing there where the air vents are. So that should look okay. Again, it's along natural panel lines, so any mismatch isn't going to be as obvious. Then we've got that big tail fin, two parts going together. And I'm guessing we can spray those out and clip that in. Okay, and then we've got a separate flap there, so that's all posable. I'm going to guess. We'll have a look at the parts in a minute, which will tell us better. Then we've got flaps. There's a note here. If building this model with the flaps in the up position, follow steps 38 and miss out steps 39 to 52. If building this model with the flaps in the down position, miss out steps 38 and follow steps 39 onwards. Okay, so basically we're sealing all that up by putting these in, flaps up. Shows you what that should look like. And then if you're having flaps down, you've got more parts to go in, and we've got some, well, we've got the hydraulic rams there with pipe work, so that's nice to see, and some additional components. They should look quite busy actually. That looks really nice. Nice level of detail on that. Let's flip this over, nearly turned 2 pages. Okay, so we're carrying on with the building up of the detail around the flap. You're going to have to do the flaps down because there's so much lovely detail going in there. Yeah, I really like that. That's going to look very busy. I think that's going to be one of the focal points of the finished model when done. Very nice. So we'll carry on through that process all the way down this page. It's just flipping over from one side to the other to get the whole thing done. Step 53, and we're doing the landing gear. That looks quite nicely detailed on the drawing at least. No brake cable, but you wouldn't expect that really. You never really get them. hinges, they look like they're okay, not too heavy, and they actually look like there's some detail on them, which is interesting. And then we've got, I'm not quite sure what that part is. Right, then we're on the wheels now. I can see that they've weighted them, there's flats on them. The hubs and tyres are all moulded in, so on the Mosquito they've done separate front hubs as I remember, but not back. Personally, if you've got separate hubs, it makes it easier to paint, because these are radial tyres. Your joint, if you align it properly, shouldn't be too much of an issue. So we'll have to look at what the detail is like on those, whether we've got sidewall writing and so on. But we're putting the wheels on, then finishing the nose bay, building up the nose wheel, which looks correct, and is telling you how to orientate the part, which is good. Looks like they've also designed it so that you can't mess it up, which is good. And then you have that bit of fuselage that's attached there that folds in when it and seals off the nose there, which goes onto the front of the wheel and is one of the key little features of it. So that all looks very nice. Step 72, and we've got fuel tanks. One of the features of this aircraft was it had a greater range because of the fuel tanks. So 3-part assembly, which will be interesting to see how good that is. Then we've got the wing tips going on. They don't look like they're clear parts, unfortunately. They were on the Mosquito. And then the wing flaps. And that looks like it's taking us to the end. So we've got step 80. We're adding the tiny, I'm not sure what they are, but they are a key feature. We're adding some tiny details there to the tail. It's the small minor details that would be breakable, so they're putting all of those in last. Got some clear parts there, the wing lights, canopy going on, compass, and then we've got an option for open and closed. It doesn't tell us that we've got different parts to use, so obviously the fit is good enough to show it open and closed on the single part, which is reassuring. That is the instructions done, 87 steps. So next out of the box is our paint instructions, and this comes on 2 sheets because we've got 3 different versions to look at. And unlike what they usually do, Airfix usually do a stencils shout out, and then any individual decals for the paint scheme get shouted out on the paint instruction sheet. They haven't done the stencil one, so everything is on each individual paint sheet. So that does make the paint instructions a bit busier than normal, but actually I think it really works okay. It's not made them too busy. I really like how Airfix approach their paint sheets. We've got the colours, the paint shout out on the same page. We've got the decals being shouted out and the paint colours all on the same page. It makes it easy to reference. So unlike Tamiya, for example, where you have to cross-reference their numbers on the paint sheet with their paint list on the instructions, it's all on the same page. So that works really well for me. And it's nice and big and clear. I mean, the numbers being shouted out are as big as my fingernail, so they're a good size, easy to read, even with my now failing eyesight. And my first impression is it looks suitably busy from a stencil point of view. There's a fair number of stencils being shouted out, little tiny ones, so I like that. We'll have a look at the decal sheet in a minute. So this is paint option A, which is England 1952, with the familiar triangles along the tail there, which I've seen depicted in different colours on other kits. So mainly silver all over, so that's a nice easy paint scheme to do. The black and the gunmetal being called out for minor details. So yeah, that's a quite simple paint scheme, I think. Then if we flip over to B, we get again another pretty much silver all over, though we do have some gloss red to do, and I'm interested. We've got a bit of a wavy line there, and I think that has to be painted on, and then you've got individual decals which give you the eyes and ears and mouth. I quite like this scheme, the Canadian scheme. It's quite colourful. I think I'm erring towards this one. So Royal Canadian Air Force, 1949. Yeah, I think this is a nice little scheme. It appears to be just as busy in terms of decals, so I quite like that. And then scheme C, probably the plainest looking scheme. We've got fewer colours listed, that's for sure. So again, mainly all over silver, and then you've got a handful of decals. So this is Norway 2019. That's interesting. So yeah, it's great to see something from Norway. We don't often get some countries aren't often represented, and it'd be nice to see more from them. We have to wait for aftermarket decals to come out for that type of thing usually. So this is quite a nice little interesting shout out. But yeah, I think of the three paint schemes, I'm definitely heading towards the Canadian one. So our decal sheet is the usual Airfix layout. We have a common area, and then we have the separate paint scheme shouted out. So we have common to all three aircraft is basically the internal cockpit ones. And then we have a common A and B with C's stencils being in with the other markings for that paint scheme, which suggests that those stencils are different, which makes sense as they're depicting an aircraft still in service not so long ago, whereas these are more the original stencils which would have been common at the time. So that all makes sense. The cartograph, so they are lovely. Airfix decals are amongst the best on the market for my money. We've got some nice little cutouts there, which means that they've considered what has to go around what, so that's interesting. Not too much carrier film on them. Obviously there is on some of these, but yeah, all looks good, and lots of decals, which I'm a fan of. Brings a model to life. Right, sprue A. And my first immediate observation is actually the plastic. Now, one of the most common complaints you hear about an Airfix kit is about the plastic being a little bit on the soft side, which results in some of the detail that the designers have spent a lot of time getting right being soft moulded and not quite crisp enough. And immediately that I'm holding this, I can feel that this plastic is a lot harder. And that was the same with the Mosquito as well, I seem to recall. This is definitely a different plastic. And when I put this Spitfire, which came out of a starter kit a year ago, next to it, I can actually see a subtle difference in the colour. So this plastic is sort of a paler blue-grey than the traditional Airfix plastic. So that's really interesting. They've definitely changed the plastic. And as I'm looking at this, you can tell the difference it's made to the sharpness of the moulding. There is some very, very fine detail on here, which is beautifully picked up. So you can see we've got all sorts of fastener detail around that panel line there. And that carries on all of these panels. And it's, yeah, that is beautiful actually. Okay, Tamiya really needs to start worrying because people are, Airfix are absolutely pushing them about at the moment with their kit releases. The Mosquito is beautiful and this is looking the same. Absolutely stunning. Lots of little panel detail with the fasteners all the way around. Under a wash, that will look really pop. That will really pop out. It'll look spot on. As we flip it over, there's no interior detail on these particular parts, but I can't see. Well, there's absolutely no flash. I can't see any sink at all. I'm trying to catch it in the light. There might be a very, very tiny amount on this edge here, but so tiny that I'm struggling to see it. But it's just blinking at me in the light. It's next to nothing. We're talking a micron or so. And maybe on this point here. So where we've got that location pin, we've got a little bit, a tiny amount of sink there. I can feel it, but it's very, very tiny. I'm guessing many modelers wouldn't even worry about it. But my job as I'm reviewing this is to point out what I see, and what I see is a thing of beauty. Sprue B deals with the upper half of the fuselage and the wings, and we're following the same story that we saw on the previous sprue. The panel lines I think are about right. They're neither too thin or too thick. Again, a comment that you used to be able to hold Airfix. There is some absolutely stunningly fine pipe work on the nose there. I don't even know if the camera will pick it up, it's that fine. Absolutely beautiful. This is the engine sections that we saw. Now we know that the ejector pin marks are outside of what will be visible. So they've certainly thought about that. I can actually see the swirls of the plastic in here, so it's not that there is no issues with the plastic, it's just you can see the injection process and the plastic swirling in there. So they have definitely changed their plastic, and all for the better. The level of detail on here is breathtaking. Very, very good. And as we know that the fit of Airfix kits has become really, really good in the last 2 or 3 years, this is reassuringly a stunning little kit already. Sprue C. Now this is a much busier sprue, in fact the busiest of the 4 blue-grey sprues. So we've got the wheels on here, and there is no side wall lettering unfortunately, but the detail inside the hubs is really, really good. Normally you wouldn't see anything inside those recesses, but there's all sorts of things inside there. It's really busy. That is proper beautiful. The level of detail that we saw on the instructions on these gear bulkheads absolutely delivers when you see the actual part. See, there's the cable runs and all sorts in there. So they've definitely upped their game in terms of level of detail, and it's so nice and crisp. There is no soft moulding in any of this. Then what have we got? Weighted front wheel, that looks nice. Got the forward landing gear there, all looks good. Some nice thin parts there. These are some of the pneumatic rams and bits and pieces. Tail is nice. That's the rear section of the engine, which has been cleverly done with the ejector pins on the fins, which is the mating surface that you won't see. So they've thought about clean up and not causing you issues and cleaning the part up. It's a well thought out, well engineered bit of model tool in this. Let's just flip that over. We'll come and have a look at the pilot in a minute. So we've got some detail on here. Lots and lots. I can feel it under my fingers, but lots and lots of rivet detail on these flaps. Really, really nice. That's our engine cowling. And then we've got the pilot. And he's got some nice hose detail. He looks like he's in a slightly unusual position, but I'm guessing his shoulders look wider than his hips, so he looks a little odd somehow. But I guess he's designed to go in the seat, and the seat will be accurate. So, yeah. So there's the pilot posed with his hands on his knees. So, waiting for the all clear to take off, I guess. Or just having a break from flying, whatever it is. But yeah, I'm really impressed with the detail and how crisp it is. I think Airfix have done it again. Very, very nice. Okay, sprue D. And as we saw in the instructions, we do indeed have 2 seat options. So that's really cool. They could have told you to remove all of the harness if you're putting the pilot in. But they haven't. They've given you the options. So big thanks to Airfix for that, making life easy for us all. We've got some of the smaller components on here. And they are well done. The dials are nicely depicted, and we have, yeah, we definitely have one that's really aimed at Decals, and one that there's not much difference though. It's just there is one with dials on the faces, but the dials are so gently done that you can see them in the light, but that's all. They are really, really fine. Quite often they're oversized to be visible, and these absolutely aren't. Yeah, that's all good. The seat, probably a little bit basic. There's no lip or detail on the side or anything, so seats are a bit basic, but will do the job, especially if you're putting the pilot in. And then we've got the fuel tanks, which are bigger than you imagine actually when you come to see them. They've got some nice detail on as well, both raised and recessed. We've got the tail using that sort of donut fastener system, which quite often causes an issue with sync and hasn't done in this instance. Then we've got the air intakes. We've got 3 of them for some reason. I guess one of them has a modification at some point. But that is really nicely done as well. Look how thin the gate is on that. Again, I'm impressed by what Airfix are doing right now. And then I have one piece that's rolling around in the bag. So that's one of the engine internal options, I'm guessing. There was one on the sprue. Given the nature of this part sticking out, this has come off and broken off. And it's broken off because it's with the other sprues in one single bag. You've sorted the plastic out. Now you need to sort out your packing, because that sort of damage, unfortunately, the part that it snapped off is the part where it's supposed to come off, but we're very lucky there that that's not been more damage than it is. Need to be thinking about your packaging a little bit more, please. And finally, we have the clear parts. And my first comment, unfortunately, is that mine is damaged. If you look at that, you can see there's a scuff on there, so I'm not sure what's caused that. It is in its own separate bag. I don't know whether that will polish out. It's certainly not rubbing off. Or it could be an imperfection. No, I can feel it's been scratched. There's an abrasive rub on there. So whether that was done in the factory, I would think it probably has, and then missed quality control, which is a real shame because the rest of the clear parts are really, really crystal clear. Look at the windscreen there, absolutely beautiful, no distortion, very, very clear. But as I look at the sides, I have the same issue on that side glass there that I do on there. Something has rubbed on here, possibly in the factory. Something's been laying on it or something like that. So these are damaged, so I will be contacting Airfix and saying, please sort me a replacement. Other than that, the parts are really, really nice. Very clear. These are the tail bits. They're all nicely done, nicely moulded, and the same with the compass item here. Yeah, I'm happy with those, other than the fact that we've got this issue here of them being damaged, which is a shame because it quite literally takes the shine off what is otherwise a really nice kit. So, Airfix's brand new de Haverlland Vampire F.3 in 1/48 scale. What are my first impressions? Yeah, really nice, actually. Actually, it's so nice that I'm thinking of rejigging my visible building plans to put this in a bit earlier and actually see how well it goes together, because I'm really impressed with how crisp the detail is. And when I say impressed, I mean impressed for Airfix. Airfix have been doing increasingly a better job every time they release an aircraft kit over the last 2 or 3 years. Seen a real push from them to improve what they're doing. And they are giving the traditional leaders in the field a run for their money. Now, if you are one of the people who dogmatically won't build an Airfix kit because it's an Airfix kit, it is time you rethought your thought process, because the last few brand new tool kits that I've reviewed from Airfix have absolutely been really, really good kits. Crisp detail, they've improved the plastic, they've improved their offering. It's still got some little niggles to do, like how they package them. It's a shame that we've got that little issue with the damage on the glass. But if you put that to one side, we've got interesting paint markings. Definitely probably going to do the Canadian one. You've got a very clear set of instructions. You've got a very clear set of paint instructions. You've got really nice, crisp, moulded parts with no sink, with no flash, which we know have been designed on CAD, so are going to go together, fit like a glove. These recent Airfix kits are really top-notch, top-drawer kits. And, if this is a subject matter that talks to you, then I can't say anything other than what I've seen so far is go out and get it, because it's a cracking little kit, that. So highlights, the 2 seats, I think is a nice little thought process, and the amount of cable runs and fine detail that they've put in there that is really nice and crisp and not soft moulded. Those are the highlights. Lowlights, it has to be the packaging, the fact that I've got a part broken off and that I've got 2 parts. My set of clear sprue has got some damage on it, you know, that needs to improve. You don't expect to see that on something that's a brand new kit. It's literally come from the factory to the distribution depot to me, so there's no reason for that damage. So those are the two little things that Airfix need to focus on. Otherwise, this is a beautiful kit, and I would recommend you get it if you're interested in it. So as always, I hope that was insightful, helpful, helping you make your mind up on whether this is a kit to buy into or not. I think it's a great kit for the money. So take care, everyone. Thanks for looking in. Enjoy your modelling, and we will see you very soon.